January 6, 1944, 8th Air Force Headquarters, High Wycombe, England. Major General Jimmy Doolittle stood in the office of General William Kepner, commander of the 8th Fighter Command, when his eyes caught a sign on the wall. The first duty of 8th Air Force fighters is to bring the bombers back alive. Doolittle read it twice, then turned to Kepner and said quietly, "That sign needs to come down. It's wrong." Within hours, a new sign replaced it. The first duty of 8th Air Force fighters is to destroy German fighters. That single decision would rewrite the rules of aerial warfare, shatter the Luftwaffe within months, and secure the skies over Europe. What began as a simple change in wording would become one of the most consequential tactical revolutions of World War II. A transformation from defense to total air domination. The crisis had been building for months. On October 14, 1943, 291 American B-17s struck Schweinfurt, Germany, targeting ball-bearing plants critical to Nazi industry. The mission was a success, but the cost was horrific. 60 bombers didn't return, 17 more were beyond repair, and over 600 airmen were killed or missing in a single day. The survival rate for bomber crews had plummeted so low, General Henry Hap Arnold, commander of the U.S. Army Air Forces, warned that if the German Air Force wasn't destroyed soon, Operation Overlord, the invasion of France, would be impossible. Then, in November 1943, the solution appeared in the form of a sleek silver aircraft, the North American P-51 Mustang. Powered by a Packard-built Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, the Mustang could fly farther, higher, and faster than anything in the Luftwaffe arsenal. With drop tanks, it could escort bombers deep into Germany and back. Captain Chuck Yeager of the 357th Fighter Group described it best. "The P-51 is faster, massive raid on Frankfurt. P-51s from the 357th roared ahead of the bomber stream and caught a formation of 50 German fighters forming up for attack. The Mustangs dove first. 13 German fighters went down in minutes. Not one reached the bombers. That day marked the beginning of the end for the Luftwaffe. Then came February. Big week. Over 6 days, the 8th and 15th Air Forces struck every major German aircraft factory in a coordinated assault designed not just to destroy planes, but to force the Luftwaffe into battle. Over 1,000 bombers and hundreds of escorts filled the skies. Major Erich Hartmann, Germany's top ace, saw it for what it was. "This is not a bombing raid," he told his men. "This is a fighter battle with bombers as bait." And he was right. American fighters roamed freely, attacking German planes, forming up, taking off, landing, anywhere they could find them. The skies over Germany became a killing ground. In 1 week, the Luftwaffe lost over 350 fighters and nearly 100 of its best pilots. By contrast, American losses were heavy, but replaceable. By March, the effects were undeniable. When 730 bombers hit Berlin on March the 6th, over 150 German fighters attacked, so low and 100 that completing the required 25 missions was nearly impossible. "We are being slaughtered," wrote Lieutenant Robert Morgan, pilot of the Memphis Belle. "The fighters turn back at the German border, and we fly on alone into hell." The problem was painfully simple. American P-47s and P-38s didn't have the range to escort bombers all the way to their targets. Once they turned back, the bombers were left alone against swarms of German fighters. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs, armed with 30mm cannons that could tear apart a B-17 with a single hit. By late 1943, the situation had reached a breaking point, and 160 were destroyed. German ace Johannes Wiese wrote that night, "Today, I watched the German fighter arm die." From that point on, it was a collapse in slow motion. Germany could still build fighters, thousands every month, but it could no longer train pilots fast enough to replace the dead. Veteran squadrons were gone, replaced by boys with barely 100 hours of flight time, sent into combat against seasoned Americans flying superior machines. By May, the Luftwaffe was shattered. Entire bomber raids went unchallenged. On May 8, 1944, 900 bombers struck targets across Germany. 750 escorts flew with them. Not a single German fighter rose to meet them. General Adolf Galland reported to Hermann Göring, "The fighter force is destroyed. We have aircraft but cannot fly them. We have pilots, but they cannot fight." 1 month later, on D-Day, Allied aircraft flew 14,000 sorties. The Luftwaffe managed fewer than 300. The invasion beaches were virtually unopposed from the air. Field Marshal Rommel admitted bitterly, "The enemy has complete air superiority. We cannot move by day. Without air cover, we cannot fight." From October 1943 to June 1944, the transformation was aeronautical
absolute.
Engineer. He understood that victory in the air didn't come from defense. It came from seizing the initiative. His January 6th order was simple but revolutionary. Fighters were no longer to stay with the bombers. They would range ahead, up to 50 miles forward and 25 miles to either side, to hunt and destroy German fighters before they ever reached the bombers. To bomber crews, the order sounded like suicide. To fighter pilots, it was liberation. "We are no longer shepherds guarding sheep," said Colonel Don Blakeslee of the 4th Fighter Group. "We are wolves." The first test came on January 29, 1944. During a massive raid. In just 6 months, the Luftwaffe went from near dominance to total defeat. The kill ratio had flipped from 21 in Germany's favor to 4-1 for the Allies. Over 2,500 German fighter pilots were lost between January and June. Irreplaceable veterans. American losses were severe but sustainable. The change in tactics had worked. Doolittle's controversial decision to let the fighters off the leash had not only saved the bombing campaign, it had won the air war. By August, the Luftwaffe existed mostly on paper. Germany's factories produced record numbers of aircraft, even jets, but without fuel, instructors, or veteran pilots, they were useless. "We had aircraft in abundance," recalled German ace Erich Rudorfer, but the Americans had killed all the good pilots in the spring. The war was already lost. Doolittle's strategy, hunt first, protect later, became the foundation of modern air power. Air superiority, the Allies learned, could never be achieved defensively. You win not by guarding your bombers, but by destroying the enemy's fighters. When asked years later about that January morning in England, Doolittle reflected, "Changing fighter tactics was the hardest decision I made. Many thought it was madness, but I knew from experience, you can't win but climbs better and turns tighter than anything the Germans have. For the first time, we can go wherever the bombers go and fight when we get there." But having the range wasn't enough. The question was how to use that range. Under the old doctrine, fighters stayed close to the bomber formations, defensive guardians tied to their flocks. German pilots exploited this predictability, attacking in coordinated waves, diving through formations, killing bombers, and escaping before escorts could react. Major General Ira Eaker, the previous commander, insisted bombers could protect themselves with overlapping fire. Doolittle disagreed. A fighter ace, test pilot, and aeronautical engineer. By defending. You win by attacking. Today, that original sign, "The first duty of 8th Air Force fighters is to bring the bombers back alive," hangs in the National Museum of the United States Air Force beside its replacement. Together, they tell the story of how one man's willingness to defy convention turned near certain defeat into decisive victory. The bombers came home not because the fighters stayed close, but because they hunted the enemy until no one was left to fight. In the end, Jimmy Doolittle didn't just change a sign, he changed the entire course of the air war over Europe.